Welcome to the NOSA Unleashed podcast, where we want to expose and remove the stigma surrounding mental health by discussing real-life challenges and obstacles that keep us paralyzed and fearful to move forward. Let us inspire you to believe there is more to life than what you are currently experiencing. Now is the time to end the silence and pursue the path to purpose and fulfillment. We will do this together because no one stands alone. Welcome back to the NOSA Unleashed podcast. I'm Laura Burgoyne, joined here with my sister Connie Blackwood. And today we're continuing the conversation that we left off last time about, how we can recover from seasons of burnout or a lack of self-care, which has really impacted our physical health and how it's connected to our emotional health and our spiritual health. So, Connie, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I think back to a lot of the times when my body's just been breaking down, and it's usually because I've had quite a bit of stress in my life.
Yeah. Some of the strategies I had to use when coming out of my burnout and into, where I am today, they were very strategic, right? One of the very first things I had to realize was I had absolutely no idea how to take care of myself.
Mm.
I had been taking care of everyone else for so long while ignoring myself that I had no idea what brought me life, what brought me rest, what I enjoyed, because I had completely neglected those things. And so to discover that at the age of 30 was quite an interesting journey to try to figure out, well, what is it that I need?
Mm.
What brings me rest? What restores me? And then, going through that trial and error and then prioritizing those things, right? Even today, like I'm feeling tired. I've had quite the week. I've had a lot of unexpected things come on my plate. And, it's like, considering what do I need right now? Like, I know definitely I need rest. I know
Mhm.
that I need actually some time alone, right? I'm an introvert. I am a person who gets depleted by being with people. And I have been with people nonstop for months. I can't actually even remember the last time I took a significant amount of time by myself, which is for me a really bad thing. And so part of my self-care was, first of all, learning what I needed and then prioritizing how to make it happen. And I think the prioritizing part is maybe the hardest part of my equation because I have so many things going on in my life. I have a lot of responsibilities. I have a lot of people that depend on me. And so realizing how we prioritize self-care and for me personally, that's like, how do you prioritize it daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly? And for each one of those, I've, tried to come up with some strategies of how to implement it in all those three areas. And unfortunately, for the last two to 3 months, that has really gone to the wayside, and I can feel it. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my, the way I cope with stress and with how I'm managing my emotions on a daily basis. And so, for me, this podcast is even timely and a reminder, Laura, you need to get back to what you know. You need to go back to those self-care practices that you put in place so that you can be the best that you can be, right?
Mhm. I think for me, I think the difficult thing for me has been that, I took this time of rest and then I came out of it feeling not necessarily rested, right?
Mm.
And I felt physically rested, but not emotionally or spiritually rested. And so I feel like in that aspect, that's where I feel weary. And so I'm actually working right now on better strategies on how to deal with keeping that all in balance, right? So that's kind of been what I've been working on this week because, I think because I'm still feeling that weariness, it's affecting my physical body in negative ways. And
Mhm.
so for me, that's been my biggest struggle is just like balancing it all out and what that looks like, because I think sometimes we use the same strategies and in different seasons they don't work the same. So we have
Mm,
to find new ways of coping, new ways of dealing with things in order for us to have success. And so for me, I'm learning these things. And so for me, it's like, okay, no, I need this dedicated time with God by myself, having this time. Like I have devotional times with my husband all the time, but how often do I get them on my own? How often do I get them like all to my lonesome in a space by myself, right? Not very often. And so I need to prioritize that. Um, I need to prioritize times where I'm like dealing with my, negative mindsets, and time when I'm actually focusing on the positive. Like I think about even what I think about, like what were my wins in the last week, right? I'm blank.
right,
Yet there's
right.
several. It's just they don't come to mind immediately. And so there's a blockage there. There's a mindset that needs to be broken.
Oh, something you said triggered a thought, and you might not relate to this at all, but sometimes when like you were talking about wins and
Mm.
how when you thought about this week, you really couldn't think of any wins that came. And sometimes when I have weeks like that, my greatest win that week was the fact that I survived and I'm still alive. Right? It's like,
Hmm.
that's a win. I made it through. I made it through all of the chaos, all the difficulty. That's something we're celebrating. I made it through and I'm here. And I don't know if that you'll relate to that at all, but sometimes it's like that is my greatest victory this week. I made it through and I'm still alive. I'm
Fair
here to
enough.
live one more day.
Well, I could relate that to this last week. I'm still fighting through this thing.
Mhm.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Another strategy that I used when, coming out of my burnout was being vulnerable and sharing, right? A lot of
Mm.
times, like we talked about last time, we withdraw, we hide from others what's really going on. And it's in the sharing and being vulnerable and telling people where I'm at and getting their feedback, right? One of the most pinnacle people in my life at that time was my counselor, right?
Mhm.
I was able to tell him anything and everything that was on my heart, and I was able to get constructive feedback. I was able to get another perspective. I was able to and I'm thankful that he was a godly man, so he was able to give me that perspective from the mindset of what the word says, right? And help reframe and refocus my attention on what the Bible says is true,
And I
right?
think
And so
sometimes,
go ahead.
sorry, I think
Go ahead.
sometimes we also um, lose sight of the fact that people help us figure out what's going on, right? Like
Yeah.
I, sometimes we need to have that sounding board to figure out what's going on inside our head and our minds and our hearts, right? We can't necessarily just go day by day and expect to know those things. Sometimes we need that sounding board. We need that person to bring clarity for even us to like just say it out loud to this person helps bring clarity.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like those venting sessions, right? You just like
Hmm.
all of a sudden it's like you just let it all out and then at the end you're like, "Oh, I finally know what's wrong." Or I finally know what I
Exactly.
need to do. It's like you just need to get it out and you need to actually share it. But when we're in those times where, we don't want to share, we don't want to tell anyone that we're struggling, and we get reclusive and isolate, that doesn't help us recover. That doesn't help us get to the other side of it. So we need to be willing and open to having those conversations and sharing everything that's on our heart, even if it doesn't make sense, right? A lot of times our emotions and our thoughts don't make sense, right? And we're trying to make sense of it with it in our head. And it's actually in the process of communicating it that it kind of starts, you know, filtering it itself out. And then you get to the meat of the problem, right?
Hmm. Because there's, I even have that with God, right? God doesn't outline what's going on with me. He asks me questions so I can figure it out
Mm.
for myself. But he asks me pointed questions so I can figure it out, right? I think that's why when you see all these shows with like psychologists and counselors, they're asking you questions because deep down inside, you know what's going on inside of you. It's just you need the right questions to get you to figure it out, to get to that root. And a lot of times we don't get there on our own if we don't have that focus. And as we
Yeah.
start talking, like you said, it leads us to those places.
When you reflect back to any times in your life, Connie, when you were kind of in those dark places or those places of burnout, like what were some other strategies that you've used to kind of come to the other side of that?
Um, a lot of it is, like you said, opening up to somebody and sharing with people. Um, that was one of the biggest things that helped me,
Mm-hmm.
was not letting it just be something for myself. The other thing was allowing other people to help me, because it's one thing to tell somebody, but it's another thing to actually allow someone to help you with it. I think the
Right.
biggest time of stress in my life, um, I got sick and almost died. And it was not a good situation. And one of my friends was like, "Here, what can I do to help you?" And I'm like, "No, no, I've got it." And he's like, "No, no, no, what can I do?" So I unloaded everything that was going on in my life at that time. And he was like, "You cannot carry all this by yourself." And he was like, "Let me
Mm-hmm.
carry it for 24 hours for you. I'll pray for it. I'll think about it. Just, I want you to let it go." And I was like, "Okay." And so I did that for 24 hours. And for 24 hours, he carried it. He prayed for it. He did all these things. And by the end of the 24 hours, I felt way better and he felt horrible. He was like, "How in the world do you do this every day?" He's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Seriously, I you can have it all back. I'm done." And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay," but I felt like I was in a better place. And then God said something strategic to me in that moment. He was like, "If you gave it to me, you never have to take it back."
Wow.
And it's like, oh, it's so true, right? And so it
Mm-hmm.
has helped me be able to give things over to God easier and trust him with it, because with him, we don't have to take it back. He's got it. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times it's just remembering that lesson, that I can give these things to God. I don't have to carry them. And that takes the stress off my shoulders and puts it back in his court, where I don't have to carry it alone. He's got it.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps me a lot.
Awesome. That makes me think too, when you share, you also realize you're not the only one,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was actually just talking to someone today about, and for the first time, she was hesitant to share her story on a prayer, like a prayer wall, because she didn't want people to have empathy. Like she didn't want people to feel sorry for her or to think less of her or whatever because she's struggling. But she finally got to the point where she's like, yeah, I need prayer. I need support. And she put her prayer requests out there, and two other individuals came to her privately and shared with her how they were struggling too. And she had no idea. And then, they can journey together and they can help one another come out of that season. And that is one byproduct of when we do start sharing, when we start trusting people with our story, with what's going on in our life, with what we're experiencing, we will realize we're not the only ones. Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times we think, well, no one can help me because I'm the only one struggling with this. I live in isolation. But the truth is, many people are experiencing these things. And many people also need, if I find a solution, they also will need that same solution. And so we need to start,
Mm-hmm.
walking together in community and walking alongside each other and, being that support, being, like you said, that other set of eyes, helping us see where our blind spots are, where we're maybe not seeing clearly, where maybe we're getting off track. And to have those people in our life that we trust, and not that you should share with everybody everything that's on your heart, that's not safety, but those trusted people. And I know we've talked about that a lot, but it's true in this situation too. Be mindful of the people that you trust and that you would value their feedback, right? Somebody that
Mm-hmm.
you trust will have your best interests at heart and be honest with you and not just say whatever they think you want to hear, right?
And if it's somebody that you don't necessarily trust their feedback, then why are you telling them? because whatever they say, are you actually going to listen? Right? Like be be very poignant about who you choose. Choose people that you actually believe in, that you actually are like trust with their
Yeah.
advice as well, because you want to be able to receive what they have for you and not just reject it and going, oh, they don't really understand. They don't really get it, right? You want to be able
Hmm.
to receive it because otherwise there's you may be able to figure some things out for yourself, but you're eliminating the piece of them actually being able to help you as well.
Yeah. I wanted to mention something else too today. And we don't often make the connection, but I wanted to talk about our health, like a physical health, right? Because oftentimes, like I shared last time, a lot of times when I'm in these difficult places, my go-to is comfort food or sugar. And honestly, for my body, that is the worst thing. But we go to that because it numbs us. It's comforting in the moment, but it wreaks havoc. And one of the ways it wreaked havoc for me was in my gut health. And one thing that we maybe don't realize is that over 90% of our body's serotonin and good feel hormones are actually created in our gut. And so if our gut health is not good, our body is not creating those hormones that we need to actually improve our mood, help us to be able to think more clearly, to have more optimistic viewpoint, to operate from hope. And when I started shifting the way that I ate, the things that I would eat, and I started healing my gut, I saw a massive turnaround in my mental and emotional well-being. My emotions became more steady and settled. I was able to manage stress much better. I was able to engage with, joyful activities and actually enjoy them way more often. And to the point where now it's just like I can tell when, you know, that's off balance because it starts impacting my mood, it starts impacting the way that I think. And so we don't always realize how connected you know, our physical health is to our emotional health and our spiritual health. But, if we're in these times of crisis and we want to come out of it, we need to actually start taking care of our physical bodies in ways of what we're eating, how much water we're drinking, how much sleep we're getting. All of these play a massive role in coming out of these seasons of stress and, anxiety and depression and all those things. And we often don't realize that. We kind of put that to the last thing. Well, that's making me feel better. That's bringing me comfort. But in essence, what it's doing is it's actually inhibiting your body from being able to produce those hormones that you need.
Mhm.
Right. And I didn't realize that. It was through a lot of research. It was through a lot of learning that I had to do that I saw the connection and I thought, huh, I need to take care of my physical health as well. It's not just about what we think and what we feel in the moment and how we share those emotions. It also comes down to how we take care of our physical body.
Mhm. Indeed, I agree. I think back to, you know, that time in my life where that friend helped me and how sick I got. And, I didn't trust anyone with that stuff. I wasn't exercising. I
Mhm.
wasn't like, I ate whatever the cafeteria fed me, plus whatever, junk food or whatever. I didn't really watch what I was eating. I didn't really, like, I was just living my life. I didn't really focus on self-care at all in that time period. And I look
Mhm.
back and I'm like, that had a huge piece, right? Like I didn't care for my physical body. And then I wonder why the stress took such a hold on my mental state, right? Like
Mhm.
obviously. And yeah, it was a powerful piece to that.
But I know you've kind of talked about this a little bit, but the last piece of the puzzle is the spiritual aspect,
Hmm.
right? And maybe some people that will be listening to this, maybe you're not, you don't believe in God. Maybe you consider yourself um, an atheist or somebody that doesn't believe in the spiritual side of things. But we all believe in something. And my encouragement to you is there is a, a whole spiritual side of who you are. And the other connection points is how our spiritual well-being is connected to our physical and our emotional well-being, right? When
Mhm.
I don't spend time with God, like you said, Connie, when I don't spend time in the Word, when I don't meditate on the truth, it is so much easier for me to fall back into old mindsets, old patterns, right?
Mhm.
For me to, feel like I'm not good enough, that I'll never measure up. But when I spend time growing and nurturing the spiritual side of who I am, I realize that I've been created for a purpose.
Mhm.
There is so much more to me than, what I can do physically or what I can offer the people, on emotional level. Like, I am a spiritual being.
Mhm.
And so we have to take into consideration what that looks like for each one of us and how we can cultivate and grow that spiritual side of who we are, because it is all connected. And, you know, we've been created this way for a reason. We're to get, what we need from God, who then helps us in all the other areas of our life. And, you know, the Bible and spending time with God have been literally like a lifeline to me. And in the
Mhm.
darkest, hardest times of my life, God has always come through. He's always brought me what I needed in the moment to bring me hope, to give me a new perspective, right? And God asks us to, not consider the ways of this world, but to listen to what he has to say, because his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Like, he sees not just this moment, but he sees our whole lifespan. He knows what's best for us. And why wouldn't we, open up our hearts and seek him in those ways, that he could give us the direction that we need. He can give us the hope that we need, bring us peace in our chaos.
Mhm.
Honestly, that is, a massive piece of the puzzle for me. Um, and I realize the times that I struggle the most are the times when I neglect my spiritual growth.
Mhm. Yeah. I can agree with that as well. And I think that's why, like, I'm taking a different approach right now, is that what I was doing before it wasn't working as well as I thought it was. So I'm shifting gears a little, and I'm going to be giving myself more time with God
Mhm.
on my own,
Right.
because yes, it's great that me and my husband get to do it together. I love that, and I'm not going to lose that part, but it's something I also need to be doing on my own for my own uh, growth and for my own uh, movement forward, right? And I think sometimes, you get used to a routine and it becomes your norm, right? And sometimes you got to shake things up.
Yeah. The more time I spend, growing in my spiritual part of who I am, I feel like it actually strengthens me in all the
Mm-hmm.
other areas, right? To me, it's almost like the anchor, right?
For sure.
You know, they often say, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, you could say that what impacts your wellness the most? Is it your mental health? Is it your physical health, or is it your spiritual health? I think spiritual health comes first. And oftentimes it's the thing that we neglect the most.
I agree. And I think sometimes we get into the mode where it becomes a chore and it's not a passion anymore. And that's
Right.
when we need to shift things, because our relationship with God is supposed to be passionate. It's supposed to be exciting and filled with, adventure, not something that we do out of obligation. And I think when it gets into that place, we've lost something that we need to regain, because
Mhm.
then we're not motivated to do it every day. It's out of obligation, and we're getting a lot less out of it than we would if we were doing it because we are passionate and excited and wanted to have that time.
Yeah. I think we've covered everything I wanted to say today. I do want to remind those of you that are listening that we will be releasing our monthly webinar on March 5th. We'll be talking more about the connection between our spirit, soul, and body, and how when they're all connected and flourishing, how it creates this opportunity for wellness. So stay tuned for that webinar that will be released. If you are already a subscriber, it will be automatically sent to your email box. And if not, you can check it out on our website, or it will also be on our YouTube channel as well. So once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the NOSA Unleashed podcast. Bye.
Bye.